Credit card culture has given rise to a life of consumerism. You go to a website, you go to a shop, if you like a gadget, splash your card, pay through easy EMIs. Is that good or bad? We'll discuss that in today's program, Investors Hangout, which is brought to you by Aditya Birla Sun Life Mutual Fund and Value Research. With me is the CEO of Value Research, from whom I'm going to ask, paying through EMI, is that good or bad? Because earlier it used to be that you just go there, do some paperwork, and you were entitled to borrow money from the bank or wherever your credit card was from. But today it is very easy. You just simply enter your details and you are entitled to an EMI.
Yes, the whole enablement of the credit culture, your ability to borrow seamlessly, is a very dangerous thing. In fact, it leads to impulsive spending. You just go there, you may not need it, but you like something and you can spend that money even though you may not have that money. And it's very tempting. Ability to have something without having the money, and there is a cost to it. That is not greatly appreciated.
The conversion aspect is the culprit, I think. Every month only 2,000.
Only 2,000. So it is actually the decompounding of it. When you get it in a denomination that only 1,800 rupees, only 2,000 rupees, you actually don't look at it objectively. That what is the cost of it? First the utility of it, how important it is, and then translating it into what is the worth of buying it now. Because buying it now will definitely have 15 to 20% of padding of interest at the least. So, and the kind of documentation which we have, and the whole ecosystem has got built up. Today you have the credit syndicate, a company which actually collates all the information of all that you have borrowed in the past, and is able to say that whether you are a good borrower or a bad borrower. And then there are other companies, not necessarily the credit card companies, but the companies which can evaluate that whether you should be lent this much money, whether you have that income. And you end up, I think, you need to borrow sometimes. There are two kinds of borrowing which is justified. One is when you buy a house, you will never have that capital, and being little careful about how much to borrow and all that is the only concern. And the other is the emergency. Somebody lands in a hospital and you have your credit card, by all means, that is not the time to think about being, so that is not an impulsive spending. But worry about all the impulsive spending and plan for it, because many a times, we don't go with a plan and we just end up spending future income. Because if you have the money and if you spend it is one aspect. Spending money which you will actually earn in future is actually unsaving. What will be saved in future has been spent now. So that I think, if investors, or savers, or normal citizens or wage earners, if they are conscious of it a little bit and decide between what is emergency and what is not, and if it is planned for, I think you will be able to save a lot of money, and you will be able to save a lot of wasteful spending. That I think is the critical aspect. And understanding the compounding of it, the money which you don't spend, and the worth of that money at a future date, when you compound it at the rate of return that it will earn, that becomes substantial. So, you need to really manipulate. You really need to think yourself hard about this. Manipulate your mind, because it's it's your own manipulation.
Manipulate your impulse.
Your impulse. And that I think, is the critical thing. Otherwise, just understanding that these are the most expensive borrowings. They come with an 18 to 20% cost, and at the least, and sometimes if it is on your credit card, it can well be 24 to 30%, which is possibly the most expensive borrowing anyone can have. And no kind of investment will generate that kind of and these are guaranteed costs that you will have to bear. No investments can guarantee you that kind of high return on any investment.
Okay, so please be careful of that impulsive buying, because it can lead to overborrowing, and of course, as Dhiren said, you end up paying interest of 24 to 30%. Dhiren, my next question is, why are the interest rates so high on these purchases? You mentioned 24% to 30%. Why? What's the way out for us,
No, there isn't a way out around
There
it.
isn't,
You
okay.
just have to postpone your spending till you actually have that money so that you can save all that interest. So you have to really see that whether it is a negotiable spending or not. You just have to defer it. I don't think there is a way around it. Why they're expensive? Because anybody lending you the money, the cost of borrowing, the cost of lending is entirely dependent on how likely he is to get that money back,
Right.
and what is the quality of the collateral. So, when you're thinking of the spending, if you're buying a phone on EMI, or if you're buying a refrigerator or a washing machine on EMI, the likelihood of somebody getting that collateral back, it'll be substantially lower value than you paid
Okay.
for.
Okay.
It depreciates quickly. In fact, if you just drive out of your car, drive out with a car from a car dealer, it actually depreciates by 10-15% the moment you walk out. So the ability of a lender to be able to having the quality of collateral, also the track record of these people who are always in the borrowing mode may not be highest credit quality. They might have income, the likelihood, but the likelihood of somebody defaulting on this without having an intention to default. If you lose your job and you have the income, you will be a defaulter. So that has to be factored in, and I think the likelihood of getting your money back for the lender drives that. So these are two factors why they are expensive: bad quality borrowers, relatively poor quality borrowers with long history, and the fact that you are borrowing for such a consumption stuff itself is a pointer to that, and the low quality of the collateral.
But there's a new phenomenon that has come in, which is called no-cost EMI.
Yeah.
So that's safe because they don't charge you interest. Or is this a eyewash?
It's not an eyewash, but it's a neat packaging.
Okay.
It's a tempting packaging. There is no free lunch in this world. So there can't be anything which comes with free, there is no free lunch. You have to really take it to your heart. So this is basically a packaging of the discount which is enabled, because enabling easy credit allows for larger sales. And for larger sales, companies are willing to give a discount to anybody who enables this. So there will be a lender who is making this credit available, and the product, the dealer will have access to a discount if it is being if it is catalyzed by this lending.
Right.
And for that larger volume, they get compensated for that. So I may not have access to a discount of 5%, but I will have access to a discount of 5% if I actually borrow to do that purchase. You will come across those kind of packages in terms of that. If you have this credit card or that credit card, then you get 10% cash back. It is of that nature. Of course, it comes with all kind of riders that to a maximum of 2,000 rupees, maximum of 5,000 rupees. So that is one relief. That is a small thing, but and that is actually a huge catch. It tempts you to spend today, then spend later, because in your mind you are thinking that it actually comes without a cost. But I think cost is one aspect, but the whole spending is you have to ask in the first place that whether you need it. Just because 10% or no cost or zero cost or zero interest doesn't mean that you have to necessarily
Impulsive
buy
buying
it.
remains impulsive.
It's not coming for free,
Yeah.
and the cost, the worth of this capital or this money being spent today will be substantially higher. If you think that it is not a very wise spending or a wasteful spending.
So what is the way out? Should I stop buying?
No, we live to consume and spend as well, and I think it's very much an important, but differentiate. And I would suggest that if you are able to configure and postpone your consumption of the negotiable things, of course you can't negotiate with the emergencies. You should not negotiate with your home purchase, because it will start saving you the rent, and you start enjoying your own house, the emotional comfort, and then you will also get some tax breaks. So it makes it very it's a very easy decision. That apart, I think there are some borrowings which might be mandatory. If your child gets into a college which is very expensive and you need to borrow, fine. But apart from that, all the spending which you can negotiate with, I think just defer it for a little while, because all these borrowings that we are doing on credit card, they are not long-term borrowings. They are 6 months, 1 year, 2 year, 1.5 or 18 months. Just defer it, and start your investments with create a spending account, that this is my money. You are going to pay this, instead of buying it today, which will be on an 18-month EMI, have it after 18 months. Accumulate your savings, spend it after 18 months. You would have earned something in between. You will not have to incur the cost. And this deferment itself will, it will completely change your approach to savings.
Are you calling this fund something?
I would call it, expenditure fund.
Or a reverse EMI
or a
fund.
reverse EMI, because instead of doing an EMI and incurring a cost, having that money, and after you have this money, then maybe if you get a great deal, borrow again. At that point, borrow it, because now you have the money. You are unlikely to be a defaulter. Your money will be earning something. If that borrowing actually entitles you to some greater savings, if something worth ₹1,00,000 is available for 90,000 rupees, and otherwise you will have to pay ₹1,00,000 today, and you have that ₹1,00,000 in your account or in your investment, this spending account, then by all means save 10,000 rupees more, defer it, and from that account that money can go. But incurring an interest for an impulsive purchase, if it can be deferred, that's the simplest way of accumulating and becoming conscious of investing and accumulation.
Okay, so it has to be a short-term debt fund that you're talking about?
Yes, this is, this expenditure account, all the money should be invested in a short-term debt fund or an ultra short-term debt fund. The idea is not to really generate substantial return. The idea is to generate some return and accumulate the savings so that you don't have to borrow.
Okay, so you have choose a fund and then do an SIP.
SIP. It's like doing your EMI. Instead of spending it, accumulating it, and then once that accumulation is there, take that money out, buy your thing, what you want to.
Okay, sounds a great idea.
And a simple idea, the simplest idea.
Yeah, I know. Are there other benefits apart from saving on the interest cost?
You become a better person. You have your own money and then you spend it. Then actually, you de-risk yourself.
From saving 25 to 30% on the interest, plus when you are investing in the short-term debt fund, you will earn interest on that also. So,
yeah, that apart, as I said, that you become a better person, which means a whole shift from, instant gratification to deferred gratification and never be a borrower.
Okay.
So that in itself, is a reflection of the discipline which you can exercise.
Okay, what about the profound benefits?
This I think is the more than the financial loss. I think this is the bigger benefit, that you become a better person and you become financially literate. You have greater understanding of the numeracy, and you become conscious of the worth of money spent now and the worth of it at a future date. So that I think it's a trait which will have a far lasting effect than 5,000 rupee, 10,000 rupee that will be incurred in the interest.
Okay, how about if we start teaching our kids about these things? Because as they grow up, they are the ones who would be getting into these impulsive purchases. So why don't we become an example for them?
Yes, that there is absolutely no teaching better than demonstrated example.
Yeah.
People, if you give all kind of lectures and you act differently, it has a different meaning. But it's a very hard thing, because this age of wide availability of easy credit all around you. You want to buy an iPhone and there is an EMI available. It is most of the ads do not even tell you that what is the cost of this product. They tell you what is the monthly outflow on account of EMI. That becomes very easy. Something worth ₹1,00,000 or 70,000 rupees, and you are thinking in terms of 3,000 rupees a month, and you think it's fairly acceptable. Then so that in itself can be a big learning. That apart, I think but it's a very hard thing to do. The peer pressure, the surrounding. So what I was telling you is that the profound benefit of all this, that if you are able to do this once and you take pride in being a disciplined and a sincere person with your personal finances, and you are not ashamed of it, of not having something which you should not have because you don't have the money, will have a big impact over time.
Okay, so consider reverse EMI fund, or as Dhiren said, expenditure fund, either of the two. Whatever term it is, the fact of the matter is that you need to understand that you don't have to overborrow and you don't have to pay huge interest through these EMIs. We now move on to the Q&A part of our program. And the first question that we have is from Rupa, who says that what are the investment avenues for very senior citizens which can provide them periodic returns, though not fixed, but by and large better than FDs? I think it's coming from our last program, they must have seen. And
I would say that, there are many avenues. In fact, my sense is that even a short-term debt fund will be able to provide a better return than FDs. But that apart, because your need for income is less periodic, it is worthwhile to assume little risk, not huge risk. And so I think an equity income fund kind of fund, which is a third or a quarter of the money is invested in equity, remaining in fixed income. They never crumble with the market. And so you are not exposed to huge market risk. At the same time, it has the potential to beat inflation, or at least match inflation or beat inflation by a modest margin. So consider equity income funds, which are very low on equity, and you can also choose the periodicity at your own will. Mount a systematic withdrawal plan, which means a standing instruction to derive a certain part of your money back, and at a quarterly interval or annually, because if your need for money is less periodic or ad hoc, then you will be at liberty to choose the periodicity of the return that you want.
Okay. Sukhjinder has written in that and he needs your help and advice on how to go about creating a financial plan for himself as he plans to buy a house worth 1.25 crores and also plans on his child's education in the next 5 years. How should he go about it?
One is that there are if I have to do an essential checklist of a financial plan, you should have 5 things. One is the emergency fund. So decide on the money that you are likely, and there are broadly, if you're in a fairly stable, safe job, then having 2 months or 3 months of your monthly expense requirement is good enough. If you are in a job which is rewarding but relatively unpredictable, have a larger. So that depends, and also depends on the family conditions. If you have old parents or other people to take care of, so depends on that. You are the best judge. No financial planner, external financial planner, can actually do those estimations, and these are estimations. Any financial plan is an exercise of estimating things. It is not a very precise science. So do that. Then make sure that if you don't have, total up all your assets, all your financial assets, and so you will have a very clear understanding that what is the money that is in your PF, available, the money that is there in your. And if you have a home which is debt free, then you need to think differently, because your need for regular income or your the money needed for your retirement plan, for your retirement fund, will be lower. So do your own estimation of why you need 1.25 crore in retirement, because that need will be different if you have a house or not. Then comes and if you don't, so I was telling you that first step is emergency fund, next step is health insurance. All your savings plan will go haywire if you don't have the health insurance in place. Third thing is term plan. If your financial, and of course the third, before that, totaling up your financial net worth. If you don't have enough, then having that term plan is important, and depends on how much, assuming that you need 1.25 crore for your retirement, which means your wife will also need that, and money needed for your child's education. Do the math, do the totaling up, subtract the money that you have accumulated, and for the remaining amount you need the term plan, because if you are not around, that money will be needed anyway. Then comes working on an investment plan for the different time frame, and you have very clear objective for your retirement, which is many years away, and plan to buy a house of 1.25 crore, but how many years? You do your own estimation. And child's education 5 years from now, do some estimation of the money that is likely to be required after 5 years, and do a simple investment plan. Just do a decompounding at at 12 to 15%. And if you're a first-time investor, choosing the right investment vehicle is a very small part of the overall financial plan. But doing the appropriate, choosing the appropriate vehicle, why it is needed, at what time frame, and you are the best person to do this. If you are able to do these 4-5 things, come to value research and look for the appropriate fund of the right kind. 5 years child education fund, it should be just filled with balance fund. Depending on the time frame, if your house plan is 8-9 years away, and if you plan to borrow your cash flow need, if you just want to put a down payment of 30%, then 30% of this is about 40 lakh rupees. So do that, accumulate that money, and then go about borrowing for your house, for which you'll have to pay your EMIs. So do that estimation, 6 steps, and you'll be there.
I hope you've heard that, Sukhjinder, and you'll follow the steps that Dhirendra has mentioned, and you'll be able to save and have a good financial plan for yourself and for your child's education as well. Okay, Surinder has written in, I want to invest rupees 5 lakhs one time and derive regular income from it. Is it possible, and how?
It is possible, but any investment in mutual fund does not guarantee any return, and depends, if this is going to be, if it is going, if your requirement is monthly income of a predictable kind, then they come in a form where there will be absolutely no upside, and the worth of capital will go down. So those options are, if you are a retired person, the first option should be senior citizen savings scheme or Pradhan Mantri Vaya Yojana. Right. Both earn about 8.3% last time. So that is one for guaranteed return from your investment, where your capital remains constant, that it doesn't grow, but you get guaranteed return, and this it's absolutely safe. Both are Government of India sponsored schemes in a way. One is actually the government run scheme, the senior citizen savings scheme. So that's one. If you are little flexible about it, then I would say that the equity income funds, they turn out to be the best option. They are little volatile once in a while. You can invest lump sum, because it's not a kind of equity exposure where or maybe 5 lakh rupee, maybe spread your investment over 4 months. Just average it a little bit. Don't do it over a long period of time. And after that, I'm confident that these equity income funds over the next 5-10 years will be able to generate more return than your senior citizen savings scheme and the other guaranteed schemes. They will also be more tax efficient, because if you are able to withdraw, do a withdrawal plan of 7-8%, then your capital will also grow. They will have the upside that 3 years from now, if you have already taken 8% annually, you will have more money, so that 8% can increase because your capital has gone up. So equity income funds, and spread your money over the next 4 months. If you have to invest, never invest lump sum in anything which is linked to market.
Okay. Moving on, there's a question from Madan, and he says, I'm drawing a pension of rupees 31,000 per month and paying Mediclaim premium of rupees 20,000. I'll be having a surplus of 2,000 to 5,000 every month. Please advise me where to invest this surplus therein, and I do not have a tax liability, Madan adds.
Drawing a pension of 31,000 and a surplus of 2,000 to 5,000 a month, maybe if you are, have your emergency fund nicely in place. So, 1 lakh, 2 lakh, 3 lakh rupees, put that in a liquid fund or a deposit, or your bank, or, ultra short-term bond fund, which is accessible if you are in that scale of preparedness. After that, 2,000 to 5,000 rupees, invest as much as you can for the long term, because if you are, even in your retirement, despite getting the pension, you are able to generate that surplus. It will create the larger cushion, leave a larger savings for your successors, and also create a greater cushion for you if you want to do any large scale spending at a future date once you have it. So I would say that somebody like you, in your frame of mind, and if you have never invested in the market before, and unlikely to need the money after you have created your emergency fund, need the money for next 3 to 5 years, start with a balanced fund. This is your long-term money, and this will generate great return. It will also be good on stability, because you'll be greatly disappointed if you see big ups and downs they will not be as, it will not be as severe as an all equity fund. Start with a balanced fund. Just one fund will do.
Rohit says that I'm 28 years old. I aim to invest 1 lakh per month for 15 years for capital growth. Can you advise how to make my portfolio? Should I have mutual funds from each of balanced, multi-cap, infra, large, mid, small cap categories?
No, Rohit should keep it very simple. If you are going to invest for the first time, put all your money in 2 to 3 funds in a balanced fund for the initial 2 to 3 years, because onboarding, getting started in a relatively stable manner, so that you develop a belief in the whole mechanism, the whole machinery, and also no amount of learning from other people will help. You have to really experience the market yourself to develop that confidence. So start with a balanced fund for the first 3 years. You still have 12 years, and after that move your money, start investing in multi-cap funds. After doing that for 1 year, move all the money that has been accumulated in the balanced fund into the multi-cap fund. So 2 to 3 multi-cap funds after 3 years, initial 3 years, balanced fund. This way there will be no need to have the infrastructure fund, large cap fund or the small cap fund, because your balanced fund and the large cap, mid cap, small cap, infra or any other sector, you will have full exposure to the market with great simplicity. You will have less paperwork. You will be interested in the 2-3 funds that you will have. And so once you are doing this, review your portfolio, review your investment choices every 1 or 2 years, and that will be good enough. So keep it simple. Start with 2-3 balanced fund, and after 3 years move to multi-cap fund. Nothing else needed.
That's simple.
Yeah.
Okay, Anand says, I've been investing in mutual funds based on value research recommendations since 2004. I'm retiring in 5 years, and though I should not be worried about the LTCG of 10% imposed, what should be the strategy if the rate keeps increasing?
No amount of strategy will actually help you. But the strategy is simple. Once you have been in the accumulation phase, until you retire, you are still in the accumulation phase. The simplest, and fortunately for you, if you have been investing since 2004, your accumulation and the gains so far will be so sizable that it's good to have more money and then pay tax than have no money and not even paying tax. So maximize the return on your investment while you are in the accumulation phase.
Okay.
You still have 5 years to go, and after that, think methodically. Invest in the growth plan. Defer your tax payment, and it can be easily deferred. There are 2 ways of doing it. One is that you realize your gains. Don't realize your gains. Do a withdrawal plan. So you will be able to defer your tax payment, because only the units which will be redeemed, the gains only on that will be taxable. So a good part of that for your old investment will also be capital. So and all the gains that you will be realizing, which is before January 31st, 2018, is completely tax free anyway. So don't move your money around. And when you need the income from your investment, think in terms of setting up a withdrawal plan of the appropriate kind. Don't make massive withdrawals. Make sure that your withdrawal is no more than 5-6%. And for that, you need to have a sizable accumulation. That way you run the possibility of making sure that your capital grows, your income rises. At the same time, your tax bill will be possibly the lowest.
Anand says, I'm 63 years of age and still working. After claiming all the exemptions, should I invest in NPS to claim the additional deduction?
No.
Is that possible?
No, it is possible. It is possible for people to invest, open an NPS account in the age of 65 and keep doing it, keep putting your contribution. But I would suggest not, because NPS is little low on liquidity. Also, it enforces buying of annuity to the tune of 40% of your accumulation, and you just have 2 years to do that. Keep it simple. Invest in an all equity fund. As you are still working, invest in an equity fund, generate more return, and you'll be liable for long-term capital gains of 10% of the gains that you will have. And also, you'll be liable to pay those taxes only when you realize it. So, invest in a good multi-cap fund if you have been used to, and ignore the NPS at 63.
Okay, last question. Abhijit says, are ULIPs now a better proposition than equity mutual funds considering the LTCG tax?
Yes, it is a differential advantage of ULIPs that it is largely an investment vehicle, and it will not be liable for the long-term capital gains like an equity fund. But that doesn't make ULIPs attractive, because mutual funds have too many good things going for them. One, they are transparent, they are liquid, they are low cost, you can move your money around when your investment is not doing well.
Right.
That apart, when you mix, ULIP is unit-linked insurance plan. You mix insurance and investment, you don't get the finest of both. Your need for insurance changes dramatically, and which ULIPs can't fulfill. Your liquidity on ULIPs is low. The surrender charges and other things could be very different. The cost claimed by ULIP is low, but most customers of ULIP or most investors in ULIP don't experience that. And the opaqueness, the transparency of mutual fund and the opaqueness of ULIPs. So I would say that there will be some ULIPs which will be advantageous maybe, and that will be proven over time. But when it comes to investment, as I was telling in the context of some other question, that insurance is very important. And ULIPs can't really fulfill the need to actually have your meaningful insurance. So don't mix both. For that reason itself, you should not have ULIP or an endowment plan.
Okay. Well, that's all we have in today's program. Thank you so much, Dhiren. And I would advise all of you to consider the reverse EMI fund. Okay. Pay special attention to that and continue to invest. Goodbye for now.